Welcome to Jobs in Tech. Welcome to the show today, Jobs in Tech. We're talking about jobs, we're talking about tech, we're talking about the world of all kinds of craziness. Brad, what's going on in the house of tech?
Oh, there's lots going on, but in terms of today, I'm excited. We actually have a guest.
We have a guest today.
We do. Yep.
Awesome. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so we have Ishmael. He's here with Informa Markets, and I'm going to kind of turn it over to him and let him kind of explain who he is and tell us a little bit more about Informa Markets, and then we can do a deep dive.
Yeah, let's do it. Ishmael, welcome to the show.
How are you?
Yeah, I'm doing well. Thanks so much for having me.
Absolutely.
So Ishmael Sanchez. I'm based in Los Angeles, work for Informa Markets in the transformation department. And my title is Head of Platform Development. So I work with a lot of the delivery teams, a lot of the transformation teams within the larger transformation group, basically helping to deliver on initiatives, drive change, come up with new and exciting revenue streams for the business, and optimize existing ones.
I gotta ask, the transformation group, is that a standard? Is that something that's called, or is that something in-house? Because I don't know if I've heard of the transformation group before in technology. Is that a standard that I'm just not aware of?
It may not be. We're a transformation office, so it's basically a bunch of multidisciplinary folks, about 100 strong of us, who basically work as an internal consultancy for the larger business. Yeah, we service about a dozen plus different industries. And so the transformation office serves as that kind of single point of contact for, if you want to do something innovative with your, website or an application, or you have some kind of idea, you kind of run that through the transformation office. And we have these experts who can help guide you on that path of like how to implement it, how to maybe even run some tests to validate what you're trying to do. So yeah, it's a pretty cool concept because, like I said, it's a consultancy within a larger corporation, basically.
Ooh,
awesome.
That kind of leads into our first question, I think.
Well, before we dove into the questions, though, I kind of wanted to give a little bit of an understanding. Who is Informa Markets? What do they do? Mm-hmm. Help us walk us through that a little bit. Yeah, just a little bit. It's all right. We all do from time to time.
So Informa Markets is a B2B company basically focused in the trade show industry. So it's a lot of, meeting up, we service, like I said, about a dozen plus industries, from farming, agriculture, to fashion, pharmaceuticals, and basically everything in between. And so it's basically, groups will connect, whether it's in person at the events or digitally through like webinars, or also, we have publications that people can interact with as well. So if you're in the fashion industry, you'd go to some fashion publications, or if you're in agriculture, there's some websites, digital magazines you would subscribe to and visit to kind of learn about your industry or how it's evolving, or different areas that you need to be aware of to kind of best suited to progress in your career.
Awesome. Okay, that makes more sense, and now I get a better understanding of Informa Markets and kind of what you guys are about. So, with having said that, Bobby, I'll let you lead into the first question.
Well, I think this kind of seems like a little bit of a new way of doing things. Is that safe to say? Kind of, it's a new kind of business model. Is that true, or am I just off in la la land?
I mean, the way we're doing it, the transformation office is a bit new. We're a relatively new group. This idea of having kind of an internal group that you can go to and help, resident experts that will help you with your certain needs, I think is something that groups have, but maybe not as formalized as we have it within Informa Markets with the transformation office, where we're just basically just dedicated toward helping their colleagues basically deliver on the initiatives that they're trying to achieve within their business.
Awesome.
Cool. With that said, this is where I like to ask the question. So how would you say you guys are a disruptor in the industry? Would you say you're kind of it feels to me like you are, and I'm just curious your take on that question. How are you a disruptor?
Sure, that's a great question. Yes. So Informa's a disruptor in kind of unintentionally, right? So, the trade show industry, like many other industries, was hugely impacted by COVID-19, right? You can think about if one of our big revenue streams is meeting in person, right? B2B markets, and the abrupt stop of meeting in person that was particularly challenging, not only for us as a company, but for the event and trade show industry as a whole, right? And it exposed a lot of, vulnerabilities and basically our undiversified revenue streams, right? So since then, right, since COVID and actually even before a little bit, but not as much, there's been a huge focus on digitizing and growing opportunities, leveraging technology, like outside of our in-person events, and then even within our in-person events. And there's a huge push within Informa Markets to be, to leverage this data, right? We're a large company. We have a lot of different industries, like I said, that we represent. And so, using that data and insights to help our buyers and sellers and rethink various approaches, right? So we've been one of basically having to adapt, right? So we kind of got disrupted by COVID. I think had COVID not happened, there wouldn't be such a focus on digitizing, wouldn't be such a focus on like the transformation office as a whole.
I 100% agree. I mean, I think one of the good things that did come out of COVID is I think it rushed people to understand the importance of digitizing and having that online presence and making sure it's personalized and in a way that you can be able to track metrics and make sure that you get the most ROI out of your your efforts. So that's interesting. That's kind of what you're seeing on your end as well. So how would you say that the technology that you guys use is innovative?
That may sound like kind of similar to disruptive, but we really kind of feel. What would you think your guys are kind of doing that you feel is kind of cutting edge or kind of at the edge of what's going on in technology today?
Yeah, like I said, for us, it's been a journey. A lot of our focus has been around incremental innovations, right? So in helping to improve the process for our buyers and sellers, to help facilitate them to basically do commerce, right? So we put a huge emphasis on customer experience. And that not only applies to our external stakeholders, but to our internal stakeholders, right? We have large groups of internal stakeholders we serve, and we want them to be happy with the products. We want them to enjoy using them. We want them to think about how we can use them in novel or unique ways, reduce complexity, improving the UI UX of certain products. And on top of all that, then we want to leverage like machine learning and automation, big data, all kind of the innovative technologies to enhance those services, right? So I mentioned data. We're using data to drive and develop new products. At the individual events, we have things like facial recognition that I know we've been toying around with, and digital wayfinding to help people find what they're looking for. And then we also have shows that are dedicated just to things like virtual reality. So it's pretty cool.
Wow. So do you guys get to like attend those as well? Or I mean, did you guys just kind of pick up knowledge as you're preparing for them?
A bit of both. So I've attended some of the engineering trade shows in Anaheim, so not too far from Los Angeles. Yeah. And it's very cool. Years ago they had things like it was called the Flippy, that basically it was a robot arm that would basically assemble burgers, or you could give it any kind of task to basically create stuff. So there's all types of new
SpongeBob.
Yeah,
maybe
an automated SpongeBob.
There you go.
Yeah, there's a lot of fun stuff at the shows for you to see. So yeah, and like I said, if you're into medical engineering, if you're into devices or fashion, right? There's an industry basically for anyone's interest. You can go in there and learn kind of what's happening within that sector space.
That's cool. Cool. So I mean, help me understand. I mean, what does the tech stack look like that you guys use? I mean, it sounds like you guys are kind of all over the place, if I'm understanding correctly, because you guys have to stay cutting edge and at the forefront of things. But what do you guys really? I mean, what's your bread and butter, if you can kind of divulge without divulging too much?
Yeah, so it's complicated, right? We're a large company, so we have multiple different stacks, right? And one of the ways in this industry, some of the trade show groups they grow is through acquisition, right? So we end up inheriting tech stacks from different companies, but we support popular open source LAMP stacks. We also have proprietary systems, like Microsoft and Adobe products like AEM. Right. So yeah, it's really all over the map. And within our transformation office, we have developers, we have project managers, product owners, platform and service delivery, change managers, and architecture and innovation. And so our in-house teams basically help manage various offshore in-house development teams, or help leverage SaaS products, or even manage relationships with third-party vendors. So the stack is kind of all over the place, along with various teams to help manage that complexity.
Okay, I mean that makes sense. I mean, it almost seems like you have so much technology at your disposal that you could use. It's hard to pinpoint just a few, but it seems like you have to have a little bit of everything because that's what your guys are kind of into.
Yeah, it definitely makes work very, very interesting because, like I said, you'll have different systems that will do the same thing, but they'll do it slightly different.
Right.
And then, our stakeholders will be like, why can't it do this? Or, this system works like that. Why can't you just add that on there? And it's like, no, it's more complicated than, unfortunately. I wish it was that easy. I could just wave my hand and then they're the same, but it's not.
Right. It would be so easy if you could just, raise that wand and just say, okay, done. But yeah, it doesn't work that way.
It doesn't work that way. Yeah. With that said, so what is the people that take care of that technology? What does that look like? I mean, do you have in-house? Or do you have a lot of consultants? What does that look like from you? Because it's a big company. I'm just curious, kind of what's the infrastructure of your technology group?
Yeah, it's a mix of in-house and offshore development teams, and like I said, the smaller groups that are specialized in different products, right? So we have consultancies as well. We work with various big consultancies to help us as well manage the complexity of everything we have. So yeah, it's a mix of, like I said, in-house and offshore SaaS products, and then multiple relationships with multiple third-party vendors.
Are you guys hiring often? You in constant growth? Are you kind of just wading through what's going on today? How's that look?
Like I mentioned, COVID was particularly challenging, so there was a bit of kind of a freeze and unfortunately some reductions. Mm-hmm. I think we've kind of passed that hump, and now even today we had a group town hall, and we were trading at above 2019 levels. Basically
wow.
we're roughly back, right? I wouldn't say we're fully back because there's a lot of variables that have happened the last few years, but we're doing well. And so there is this kind of view of growth, right? And investing in staff and upskilling and learning and also hiring as well, especially as we go through this journey of digitizing.
So let's unpack that a little bit more. I mean, what does your hiring look like? And I'm assuming you're a hiring manager, so help me understand, what do you look for in a candidate? What would somebody need to do to stand out to kind of wow you?
Yeah, so at Informa, because we're diverse groups spread across the globe, there's a huge focus on collaboration and teamwork, right? We're a global company. At Informa, we have a saying, think big, act small. It's one of our core values.
I like that.
So, I like that.
Yeah, it's kind of cool. And then when you go to that from a developer standpoint, or even for an internal colleague, when we're hiring, right, we're looking for someone kind of to shy, at least like I said, from a development standpoint, shy away from those like kind of rock star developers, right? We put a huge emphasis on soft skills like communication, but also along with hard skills like development skills. So we find that people who have these large, rock star egos, they kind of get in the way of being flexible and adaptable. And because we have these various, technology stack, and because we go through acquisition, and so you kind of find yourself repeating the same consolidations or various technology problems, we find that that ego tends to struggle to add value to our internal stakeholders and our external stakeholders. So it is really about collaboration and teamwork, how that person will fit in with the group.
I love that you say that. We talk about that all the time. Me and Brad talk about that, being hireable.
Absolutely.
One of the key pieces to being hireable. It isn't about how much you know anymore. It's about how you can get along and how you can connect with the culture. And if you
Absolutely.
can't do those things, and you've just acknowledged that is a big thing for your company.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
it's huge. That developer who thinks he'll never have to talk to a client or a stakeholder and just can code there all day, maybe check email once, that's not going to work, right? We're going to need you to jump on calls.
Those days are gone. Yeah, and you're not alone. Your company's not original in that fact. We talk about it all the time, and hopefully people that listen understand. If you're one of those folks that think, I'm so smart, everybody needs me, that isn't necessarily the case. You've got to be able to get along with people, which is interesting because everybody talks about the social media world. We can't communicate anymore, but now companies want us to communicate and be able to connect to people more, customer service, those kind of things. I think that's very interesting.
Absolutely. I mean, I think it's really interesting in that regard because, I mean, like you said, I mean, yes, as much as we have social media and everything, I think we've gone to a world where I mean, maybe I'm wrong, but companies are starting to adapt because of COVID of ways that they communicate. It's not just, Slack messages or team notes. It's, hey, how do we interact? How do we build that team camaraderie? How do we make sure that everybody's participating at a level that they need to? And I think that's huge. So with having said that, Ishmael, I mean, is there anything that you guys do that kind of sets you guys apart and making sure that you build that team culture?
Culture wise, yeah.
There's a lot of outreach that happens. So we have a mentorship program. I think that's really cool. I didn't have a mentorship program when I was going through, but that's one of the things we have that internally. We also have a lot of colleague-run organizations as well. Like they just launched recently a military network. So like for people who had prior military service, you can connect with other Informa colleagues, multiculturalism, LGBTQIA plus groups. And like I said, we also have volunteer initiatives. So really emphasizing, right, this community. We have this one large initiative, Walk the World, where the whole purpose and intent is to spend time away from work, raise money for your local community. So there are a lot of this community building, getting involved, if you want to, with various groups to help kind of facilitate, right, this kind of teamwork and this bond among colleagues.
That's awesome. I mean, I think that's I mean, we're in a world where we have to be inclusive of everybody, and I think that's fantastic that you guys are, leading by example is what it sounds like, is you're really making sure you put that effort forward and making sure you do the right things and make sure that everybody does get included.
Yeah, and then we also have a huge focus on sustainability. Like that's been a big thing, and it was actually a focus for years now that we've had. And so now that there's various groups are the impact on the economy and the impact on the environment, right? We're looking at how we can minimize our impact when we have these gatherings and stuff. So there's a huge impact there. And then even when we're doing stuff in our offices as well, there's thought gone into, right, how can we help volunteer and help the community as well. So yeah, it really does foster, like I said, a teamwork and collaboration.
Awesome. I know we kind of talked about like the interview process, but I mean, help me understand from your side. I mean, what do you look for in a candidate, and how many interviews does somebody have to go through when interviewing to get on with you guys?
Yeah, so it's generally a straightforward process, right? So we do have a general screening from HR or the hiring manager, and there's usually a tech assessment if it's a technical role, and then there's the interview, so a Q&A session, and those consist of maybe 2 to 3. Okay. We try not to have, I've heard horror stories about 6 different interviews and all these different tests. Like, if we want you, we're gonna make it easy, right? We're not gonna make it difficult for ourselves. But yes, depending upon the role, maybe you'll meet with the senior leader, so maybe not your line manager, but your line manager's boss, or you'll meet with the technical architect role. It really depends on which hiring. But yeah, it's a few steps, and then if everything goes well, then you'll get offered the job.
Awesome. Cool. So it sounds like, you guys understand well enough, like you don't need to overcomplicate the process. It sounds like 2 or 3 is just about right. And I think that's smart of you guys, because any more, then I think you're just going to end up losing candidates and they're going to lose interest.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I like to ask the question, in your company, in the company now, how do you see the future of the technology? Do you see it changing? Do you see you using more of something else or less? What do you think of the future of your technology and how you take care of it?
Yeah, for our particular technology, it's going to be a shift to unifying experiences. Right now, like I mentioned, the acquisition and the different tech stacks, it makes it very hard because we have all these different fragmented landscapes. So I think a big focus for us in the future is to basically consolidate these platforms, streamline the process to help facilitate this change, right? We're all businesses, we all want to grow. And so we in order to improve our internal capabilities, we need to, have less technology around, because then that makes it easier for us to experiment and adapt as needed. But right now, the landscape is a bit fragmented. So I think we need to first work on organizing that before we can kind of go into and, do a bunch of experiments and adapt with different and new technology.
Nice.
Cool.
Yeah, I mean, I think, unifying and getting on one page, I think is paramount. Because I mean, if you can't figure out kind of how to make sure things are talking together, then I think you're kind of dead in the water.
Yeah, and I think that's something else we look for in candidates, is for this being resourceful, right? We want people to come with new ideas. It's not just, all right, we need you to code this. We want these experts. We want to hire people that kind of take the time to be like, well, I know you wanted this, but what if we did it this way, right? You'd be able to get everything you're asking for and more. And so I think that's another key thing, that resourcefulness. And I see that also shifting our technology, because as we have this kind of optimized stack or a consolidated stack, then we can put more effort into doing more, like I said, novel work.
Awesome. I like that.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe this is a loaded question for you. I don't know, but is there anything that that would make a candidate stand out for you, other than kind of just being kind of I guess a critical thinker, I guess would probably be the best way to say it, that you just kind of summed up?
Having that mix of that technical aptitude along with solid social skills. I mean, we talked about a little bit,
right?
That's really gonna be paramount, right? We have roles at Informa, right? And even if someone doesn't fit every requirement, we do suggest people to apply anyway, right? So we're supportive, we're inclusive, and we help train. And there are some things where you can train people, right? If there's if they're not technically knowledgeable on one particular thing, you can work on that, right? But someone who really just can't interact with people, like you said, has issues interfacing with people, like that's going to be a lot harder to turn around than, say, someone who's maybe not familiar with this type of technology tool, right, or this type of coding.
And I don't know if this is off questions, but I mean, do you interview a lot of people that are very technically strong but don't have the social aspect that you're looking for?
Surprisingly, yeah, we do have that. So these folks that maybe worked at consultancies or worked at companies and just really haven't had to have that client-facing interaction before. And then you get them and you start asking questions. How have you, put scenarios like, what would you do if you were asked to deliver something that couldn't get done? How would you handle those certain areas? And you can kind of get a sense of it. They've never really had to, talk with people or talk problems out. How do you handle conflict resolution? You see right away, you haven't done that, right? So you just kind of deliver the code, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's just that's going to be a hard sell to incorporate someone like that, because like I said, at our core, we're collaborative and it's a lot of teamwork. So if you can't have that, and even though we have a lot of diverse teams, they're small. So when you have someone who's not good at communicating or wants to do their own thing, it's going to be very evident on a small team, right?
Wow, that's great insight.
That is. Let me ask you this. I mean, kind of tying into that, is there any advice that you would give them on maybe how to better their communication skills?
If someone's really, really tech focused, and this is something that I did in retrospect, I was really thankful. I guess I stumbled upon this, but go to like your meetups, like any kind of technology meetup, and do a presentation. Awesome. Like talk about what you do, because that's something probably if you're technology focused, you can talk all day about it. And then you'll start to have engagement from people who ask, well, how did you do that? Or how did you deal with that? It will force you to have that kind of conversation. And I think that helps people grow. Like I said, I fell into that when I was initially freelancing to kind of build my business, as I would go to meetups and present on topics. I think it's a good way to get people out there and not only out of your comfort zone by talking, but then also meeting people and networking with people. You'll kind of build those soft skills.
I love that answer, because that's one of the things that I suggest them to do as well. Like something free, something easy, something that I know they're excited about. Meetups are fantastic for that. So if they can find like a group that they're tailored around their technology, it will do wonders for them in just being able to help them. So I love that that's your suggestion.
Yeah, getting out of your comfort zone a little bit, because if you're not growing and understanding communication and getting together with people, it's going to get worse and worse for you to get a job. It's going to be harder and harder. And we see it in every interview we do with every company. They want people that can deal with other people. There's just this technology of sitting in a room alone doing the code. It just doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah, I mean, I think those days are going away.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
What do you think, Ishmael?
So we do have one last question that we normally ask.
Yes,
the good Bobby, one. Do you want to take this one? I mean, I know you love this question, I want to give it to you.
So this we throw out to everybody, and it doesn't really have to do with your company or anything like that. We want to pick your brain and your thoughts for the future. What do you think is some of the technology things coming out in the future, just from your mindset, just from things not to do with your company, just what do you think's going on in the future? What's going to be popping up? We just love to get insight from different people we interview.
Yeah, it's a great question. I think there's, I'd be remiss if I didn't talk about AI. That's right. the big talk that's happening right now.
Absolutely.
I do think there's going to be this shift to creative tasks and creative work. With AI, everyone seems to be so worried about how it will eliminate jobs, and it will, right? There's the unfortunate part of that.
Agree.
But however, I think what people are failing to see is it will allow us to do, like I said, more creative, more interesting work by, automating things that computers are really, really, and technology does very well that humans do very poorly. So I've had some interesting conversations with just people in my community. So since I'm in LA, I have, a lot of people in the media industry. I was talking to this gentleman about radio shows, and so he does voiceovers, and he got approached. This gentleman did a voiceover, and he got approached by this company and said, can we lease your voice to do and generate through AI the different variations? And he thought about it, and he was like, yeah, absolutely. So he did one take for Los Angeles, and they're going to do this voiceover in New York and Miami, all these different cities. And he's not going to have to do those individual takes where he'd have to spend, days in the studio running those takes over and over again. Now he does it once perfectly, then AI handles the rest. And that's where I think that we're going, is now he can focus on more creative, novel projects, and this manual, like doing the same thing, repetitive work is outsourced to him. So I do think we're going to have that. And another gentleman who, he's an actor, and he's from Brazil, and so he's writing I think these theater plays in Portuguese and English, and he's having to manually translate. Again, we're talking to him about how AI can help do that translation. It's speeding that up, so that's less manual, repetitive work that really is not a good use of his time, and instead he can focus on his creative processes and building new arts and new plays and new stories. And I think that if you look at that from that perspective, it's exciting because it allows us to get on that other side of that and start saying, well, where are the opportunities opening up for us? So not so focus so much on what's AI going to eliminate, where are the new opportunities coming out? So my hope is that we're shifting, like I said, to that creativity, and some of this laborious work that we do, manual work, is going to go by the wayside. At least that's what I want.
I really like that, because I'm with you. I do believe that jobs are going to go away, and I believe, at least from a programming perspective, I think a lot of that is going to be gone. But I think the engineering side, where the creativity comes out of understanding what can we get from AI, what can we do with this, and I think the possibilities are endless. So I think you hit it spot on.
Yeah, I always like to talk about being on the other side of the API. Right. You need to kind of see those things. You need to be able to code, but it's not just about coding. It's about solving problems, right? Just because you can code, that doesn't ensure, job security. You need to be, like I said, thinking kind of further ahead.
Absolutely. 100% agree.
Yes. So good. So you would say, and I always like, you kind of see the future as being bright?
Absolutely.
Not this gloom and doom of AI craziness world. You really feel that, and I think we kind of go along with that there's going to be some great opportunities. People that look at the what it's going to take away, like you said, are losing out on what we will be able to create, and that Absolutely. Is some cool stuff. So cool. Thanks, Ishmael.
Absolutely.
Well, wow, that was this is good. How you feeling? Any last words, Brad? Any last questions?
No, I mean, I think we pretty much hit on everything that we were planning on, and that's awesome. So
how do people get a hold of you, Ishmael? How do they find you if they're interested in the company or what have you?
LinkedIn's a great place to connect with me. LinkedIn, and then I'll if there's any specific questions, and I know, like, for me, mentoring's been a big part. I mentor staff at Informa Markets, and then also in my personal time. So if people have any questions and want to network, and if you have a question about anything, they can connect with me and DM me. Yeah,
awesome.
Absolutely.
Ishmael, do you mind? I know we were going to do this, but I wanted to run it by you. You don't mind if we put your LinkedIn profile, thank you, the word I couldn't remember, into our show notes? That way people can get a hold of you that way as well.
Yeah, absolutely. No, totally fine.
And then we'll also put a link to the jobs that you guys have posted there as well. Is there anything else you want us to kind of put on there as well, or is that it?
I think that's great.
Awesome. Well, cool. Ishmael, thank you so much for being on the show. Super good stuff. Thank you, Brad, for being here. One more week. All right, you know the drill, people. Thank you for listening to Jobs in Tech. We will see you